What's up, cyberspace cadets? That's right. It is Sunday, and that means it's time for some ice cream. And ice cream is a concept I came up with. Sunday is a good day to give yourself a good treat. And what I love to do is I love to talk to people, and that's a big treat for me. And so I decided to call this little interview thing that I'm doing on Sundays the ice cream interviews. And today's guest is a fantastic guy. Everybody knows his name, especially if you spend time in the chats or if you've been around Gulf City for a hot minute. You run into the name JTR CEREAL KILLER, or some people may remember him as Jack KHIV News, Jack the Ripper, and just Jack T. Ripper. Jack, what's happening, man?
Oh, not much. Thanks for having me on, Irate. How's it going?
Dude, I'm having a great day. Better now that I'm here and hanging out with you. It's been an interesting weekend, to say the least. I'll say that. How about you? How's your weekend been?
Oh, anytime when I wake up, I don't see my name in the obituaries, it's a good day.
That's right. Every day above ground is a good day. That's right. Well, good. Usually the first question that I ask people, and I'm going to ask you, is that what got you into this like corner of the social media market, or whatever we're going to call it, space, whatever. What brought you to YouTube, and then I'll follow up with that.
All right. What brought me to YouTube was, the gateway videos, all the cat videos and stuff. Mm-hmm. But no, then I started following Sugar Tits, Bearing, Undoomed, Mason Atheist. Just some of those skeptic people, that really, piqued my interest, especially right after I started following right after Gamergate. So I was, clueless basically before all that stuff. And then right after VidCon last year, I started, dumping a lot of those channels. And I found a nice little cozy corner in the world called Gulf City and KNN News. And that's where I basically planted my flag now.
Fantastic. In Gulf City is a very addictive place. And the guys, Gasly and AP are very magnanimous and very charismatic in their personalities. And of course the product.
Well, it's not just AP and Gasly. I mean, it's everybody that's in the side chats, mm-hmm. On the Discord boards, community. The entire people. I mean, everybody has been great so far, especially with contributing their musical talents or artists or paintings and drawings and everything like that. Everybody just awesome. Supports Gulf City, and I'm glad I was on the ground floor when it started, and that's why I'm such a big supporter of it. And they have never steered anybody wrong so far, not that I've seen. And
there's also the secret DM on Twitter that we don't tell anybody about. But we'll
that's my little hidey hole. That's for all the cool kids.
That's right. So all right, why the specific name? Why JT Ripper, Jack the Ripper? And I love the serial killer, being the cereal the kind we eat, not a sequence cereal. And that avatar too.
Well, let's start with the avatar. That avatar was drawn by a good person, Kent County Sheriff, way back in the day. I haven't seen him around in a while. I don't know what he's doing. But yeah, he's the one that drew that avatar for me, and in honor of him, I decided to keep it.
Well, cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hell of an artist. I've shown some other stuff from his artwork on there too, But as far as the name goes, the Jack T. Ripper, that got started back in high school because me and my friends a couple of my friends were into the AV club, and they needed some projects to be done. And we just did home movies, mostly slasher-style movies. And one day they needed an extra person. I was normally the cameraman. And they needed somebody to do an interview. And I just happened to pop up and say, this is, instead of Jack T. Ripper, it's in Jack the Ripper, it was Jack D. Ripper, from the Stanley Kubrick movie.
Yes.
Exactly, yes. And I used Jack D. Ripper, And then I used, KHIV News, and that's how that got started. And it was a big hit throughout the school because of that. And when I started, following Gulf City and doing, my shilling, with all the, merchandise I bought from there, I decided just to, change it up a little bit, go with the serial killer, I guess, nomenclature, keep that back from high school, and just go with, KHIV News like how I did with the high school. Then I just switched it over to, the serial killer, because I started getting back into some of the 90s music, and I forgot about Green Jelly, or Green Jello, or however you want to pronounce it, with their song, the Toucan Sam song, So it was, a kind of a hybrid, it's a gimmick on a gimmick on a gimmick.
Right. Well, I think it really works, so let me think.
But, everybody seems to, take into it, especially because, cereal is soup.
That's one of the questions I usually ask. All right. I wanted to. So, not many people are familiar with the Kubrick movie. So, are you a fan of Kubrick?
Oh, I love his movies. They're fantastic.
So, in the movie that we're referring to is a movie called Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love to Bomb.
Oh, yeah. Who couldn't love Major Kong at the end?
Oh my God, that's so hilarious, man! Riding that bomb all the way down, and starting World War III and the Doomsday. At the end of the Cold War, Russia literally had devised a thing called the Black Hand, which would have been a doomsday device. Had we launched any nukes, there was an automatic launch system that they had set in effect that would launch everything. Like say had the Kremlin been taken out by a nuke. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. When not only in reading but also on the show that the Americans, they touched on that. I was surprised that they would, because that was such classified stuff. But so that's cool, man. People. Especially younger people nowadays aren't going to, have a hard time with black and white stuff, or even stuff that seems older. And man, that's such a fantastic movie, and there's so much to be said about, for guys like us that grew up in the Cold War era. We understand, what was at stake back then. And
even as kids, getting the propaganda from the Reagan era, and all the cartoons that we were bombarded with, and the music and everything like that. And then, 1989 rolls around and the Berlin Wall falls. And it's like, now what do we do?
Right. It was, I guess all the communists just came here and became professors. I don't know.
I think that's exactly what happened.
It's like, what the hell happened to this country?
I mean, I would gladly change, give our socialists in exchange for their capitalists.
Indeed. All right. So, what's your favorite book? We've been talking about movies a little bit. What's your favorite book? Is there anything you like to go back to?
I don't really have a favorite book or author, but I just have a plethora of different genres, if you want to call it that. I mean, I mostly stay with the classics. I got Cervantes and Dante's Inferno and all that stuff. Wow. Adam Smith, Alexander Dumas. And stuff like that. That's what I like to read. Some military history, not too much of it though. Have several Ayn Rand books, and I know people really don't like that, and some people do. So I mean, I just go through a different, genre of stuff.
Awesome. Are you a big Rush fan? You mentioned Ayn Rand. A lot of people get turned on to Ayn Rand by listening to the music of Rush. Neil Peart was a.
Actually, I got into it, reading Ayn Rand because of one of the guys at work. We just started talking. He was an older gentleman. He was in his 50s whenever he, started up there. and he was in the field for quite a while, but he just needed a new job or a new placement or whatever. And we started talking. He's like, you need to read this person. It's like, you have a lot of the same philosophies as her. And I just started reading. My first one was We the Living, and then I went to read The Fountainhead, and then Atlas Shrugged. And I really liked some of the stuff in there, but God dang it, she's so dry with her writing and very repetitive. Oh God, just so repetitive.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people have complaints about her, that she doesn't put enough emotion, into her stuff, and it can come off as being very not statue like. What word I'm looking for? Very stiff, I guess.
Very stiff, because I've read Chekhov and Dostoevsky. Russian writers to me are very dry. I guess it's just their tone of their grammatical structure, I guess, if you want to call it that. Their tone of it is very dry, especially being in Soviet Russia or even under Tsarist Russia. Mm-hmm. I guess they was just very dry.
Well, yeah, that's interesting, because I was really good friends with a girl who was Russian, and she, the language is just like that. They talk in this real simple, like, get to the fucking point, They don't fuck around with talking. They say their shit and they get out. It's interesting. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it doesn't hurt. If you're used to that. But if you're in a novel, you want the abstractions, you want all the adverbs and adjectives, you want everything described to you with full details. You can picture it in your head.
Yes. And
a lot of that isn't there in some of that Russian writing. I'm not knocking it. I do enjoy it.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying, because it's because I like, if you read like Red Badge of Courage, I'm just picking something because I know that there's some, you can close your eyes and imagine, because the guy uses words almost like paint, and painting pictures.
Describing the smell of the gunpowder and the uniforms down to the very last, brass button and the stitching and all this other stuff, so you can visually picture in your head. But with some of these other writers, it's, this is what's happening. That's it. There's no, great detail in the backstory.
Bim, bam, boom. So what was it like being Jack T. Ripper? Where did you grow up, and how'd you grow up? If you want to get into that, don't dox yourself. Just kind of, give people a taste of country boy, city boy, that kind of thing.
Oh, if you want to go country boy, city boy, I'm a hybrid of both. I've done farm work, and I've also, lived in the city for a while. I'm not originally from where I am now, but, I migrated up here where I am, when I was about 12. So, it's been an adventure the past 40 some odd years. With, being in the military and, stuff that's happened, the past decade with me, it's been a wild ride.
So, all right. So you were in the military.
Yes.
That's something that a lot of people don't know about you. Okay. So, if you could, all right, if you could talk to a kid that was leaving to go to boot camp today, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, first, watch the first half of Full Metal Jacket. The reason being is, when I went through, I watched that, and it's like, if boot camp is anything like this, I'm in trouble. And after like the first week, I was like, dude, I can handle this. This is easy. This is nothing compared to Full Metal Jacket. Mm-hmm. Of course, I went into the Navy, and the Marines are a totally different story, and simplified to all the brothers out there. But yeah, I mean, that was my first, deal. I was like, I'm going to watch Full Metal Jacket, the first half, go through the whole boot camp scene, and, get my mind trained for that level of yelling and screaming and reverse psychology and listening to the words very carefully to pay attention to what's actually being said and not how it's being said.
Got you. So, and once we go back to Kubrick, that the Full Metal Jacket being one of his masterpieces. So, it's really hard to find people like, especially nowadays, who are big Kubrick fans and they can talk about that. So I'm going to save this for like when you and I are hanging out. We're going to talk movies, man, because I'm into
Oh
that
yeah,
big
I mean
time.
that'll work out just fine.
Fuck yeah. Let's see. So all right.
But you know, going through the Navy, you know, boot camp through Navy, I went through RTC Orlando, and it was super easy for me. I just, you know, put myself in that right mindset. And it's like, listen to everything that they're saying. They're trying to teach us. And some people were resistant to that. You know, it's like, I know what they're doing. They're trying to break us down to build us back up in their own image. I didn't fall for the mind games as much as the other people did. You know, like after our first or second week there, you know, we had the major shakedown and the beatings. You know, that's what we call extra, you know, getting PT'd. And at the end of it, they passed the American flag between the entire company, playing Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. And like 95% of the company broke down and cried the first time around. The company commanders didn't see everybody crying. It's like, oh, we're going to do this again until everybody starts crying. Did it again. And after that second time, it was only me and another guy across from me. We were not teary-eyed, but you know, we were looking at each other. It's like, if you cry, I'm going to cry. So let's make a pact right now without even saying a word and not to cry. And they did it one more time, and we were the only two people that didn't cry. Even though we wanted to, it's like, man, we're not going to fall for it. And after that, we, you know, became kind of close, you know, during boot camp for that. So I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie going through boot camp, and you know, just pay attention to what's going on around you. That's, you know, it's easy.
Man, that's a great story, man. The flag thing and that bond that you can make with somebody without even speaking, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, late at night, you know, we would get out of our racks and get our little handmade chessboard set up and, you know, play around for a little bit until the, you know, the fire watch came around. It's like, crap, no, back in the racks.
That's cool. You're a chess player too.
Oh yeah, I play some chess. I haven't played in a while because most of the people I've played with are like, "You're just hustling us, Jack. Quit doing it."
So you're good at it. So
I've played with some people that were in tournaments back when I was in junior high. I was in the chess club, and they went through tournaments, and they were world ranked. Some of the kids I was playing with. So I mean, I got, you know, and then through some of the community activities, you know, I go up to the city hall and play with, I mean, like people in their 70s and 80s that's been playing this for a while, and they would point out every mistake I made, so I would, you know, learn from that.
Oh, cool. So all right, so here's a question I usually like to ask people. It's like, what was the moment that you can recall where you realized that you weren't a child anymore?
Oh God, what would that be? That'd be about 16 or 17. I mean, as soon as I got my driver's license and a full-time, part-time job, if you want to call it that, because I was working, you know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but the hours were coming up to be like, you know, a full-time job almost. And when I, you know, bought my first car at age 18, you know, cash in hand, dropped it down, and they're like, holy crap. So it was about 16 or 17 when I knew that, you know, no longer a child and definitely had a lot of responsibilities, you know, that going forward. And that's what partly drove me going into the Navy.
You know, what's interesting is that what I've noticed is that most cultures have a rite of passage where there's a ceremony that marks, you know, for when the boy, you know, becomes a man, right? In Judaism, they have a bar mitzvah. But there's nothing like that really for, like, you know, the American culture. And I guess maybe getting a driver's license may be the closest thing to that. I don't know, man. What do you think?
I would say there's many rites of passages, you know, from going from childhood to adulthood. You know, in some parts of the country, that might be shooting your first buck or your first bear or your you know, first turkey or something like that, you know, the hunting and the fishing, getting your first gun, you know, starting to lead up to the, you know, getting the driver's license, taking, you know, different routes in your life, I guess, you know, leading up to, you know, when you finally leave the nest. Drinking your first beer with your dad at a strip club. You know, I mean, there's, you know, so many different rites of passages, but there's not one specific way, you know, ceremony, as you said, like in Judaism or, you know, in Islam or whatever, that says, okay, now you're a man.
Right.
Now you are the supporter of the family. There's nothing like that in American culture.
It just, I always just, you know, it's just something that always stuck out to me. I can't remember, I was in a conversation back, you know, a long time ago when I was a, you know, when I was a liberal. I put it that way. It's been a while. So, let's see. I got some stuff scratched out here. All right, is there something about you that your friends in Gulf City and you know the public and YouTube don't know about you that you would like for them to know about you?
I've put out some videos describing, you know, some of the not so brilliant things I've done in the past, and you know, I've, you know, put those videos on private. You know, it's like, you know, I'll put them out every once in a while, but yeah, about a decade plus or so ago, you know, the industry that I was working in at the time, I was doing a lot of lead soldering, and over time that lead had built up into my system without realizing it. And it, you know, this is, you know, kind of a mental health issue, you know, here. Mm-hmm. And it really, you know, it started affecting my family life, my work life, you know, my personal life with my friends. And it just, you know, that slow buildup over time, and, you know, all the responsibilities I, you know, had as a, you know, a dad, a husband, a, you know, friend, a coworker, you know, all the hats I was wearing, you know, on top of the lead poisoning that I was slowly getting and not realizing it. Yeah, I had a mental breakdown. It was around Christmas time, and, you know, just, I went full on psychotic. I mean, they had to call SWAT, you know, to get me extracted. I had basically a 6-hour, you know, standoff with the SWAT officers. I mean, I was just a rage monster, you know, whenever I finally snapped. And it wasn't a good place. I mean, they tased me 3 times. The first time they tased me, I ripped the tase out. I mean, I just ripped the leads out. I mean, and the second time they did it, I was only able to get half of it because the other wire was somewhere and I couldn't find it. And the third one took me down, and that was after they shot me with a beanbag. And goddamn, those damn beanbags hurt.
You're a tough motherfucker, man.
I mean, yeah, apparently so. I mean, especially, you know, that pissed off.
No shit.
You know, oh goddamn. I mean, but through the entire negotiation process that they're, you know, having, you know, I distinctly remember just one part of it when, you know, the negotiator said, you know, nobody has to die today, because, you know, I wanted to go out, you know, suicide by cops, and I'll, you know, rightly admit to it. And as soon as I said nobody, you know, my name, well, you know, after he said, you know, nobody has to die today, I said, well, luckily today my name's Nobody. And I just seen his face just sink. His eyes rolled, and he just shook his head, and he actually walked away for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just because how I just said it. And it's like, you know, reading Greek mythology, you know, kind of what Odysseus did with Polyphemus. You know, it's like, if, you know, Poseidon asks who did this to you, blinded you, know, tell him nobody did. And for some reason, that has always stuck with me. And it's like, it just happened to pop into my head at that point in time. Like, I didn't miss a beat, and I didn't know if the officers thought I was trolling them or what, or if I was actually, it was just the entire situation. But after that, I spent 4 months in county, and then 2 months at the psychiatric hospital.
Right.
And during this entire time where I was, saying, hey, I've already had a couple of breakdowns, very small breakdowns, went to the hospital, and, prior to this extraction, and they're like, oh yeah, you're bipolar, you're this, you're that. And it's like, do blood work on me, please, for the love of God. They only did blood work to make sure, the liver count, blood counts were all good. They didn't check for no heavy metals. And the first thing I said when I went to the state hospital was, check my heavy metal counts. I work with heavy metals. Make sure it's not in my system, for the love of God. And like, you know, they finally did, and the results came back. It's like, yeah, you do have, you know, a significant amount of lead in your system still. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, but we can't do anything about it until, you know, and over the 2 months, they did a lot of blood work to make sure that my lead levels, you know, had dropped, and like, okay, you're good to go. Basically, it was a 51-50, if you want to call it that, guilty verdict. But because of that temporary insanity due to the lead poisoning, you know, and getting involuntarily admitted to a psychiatric hospital, you know, I can no longer possess a firearm because of that. And yes, I know a lot of you guys out there are going to say, you know, fuck the government on that. But I accept it. I don't have to like it. I still support the Second Amendment. And if shit goes down, by God, I'm going to grab a gun, because, you know, there's not going to be any law.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a very dark, you know, time in my life. And, you know, when people start having these mental breakdowns and stuff, I'm very open to that, you know, feeling. It's like, dude, I've been there. I know what it feels like. You know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, and if anybody wants to, you know, talk about it, you know, you can find me on Twitter, you know, and, you know, links probably down in the description somewhere down below. I don't remember my Twitter right off the bat, because I'm, you know, I never use it for my, you know, for myself. I just do it to, you know, shit post and stay in touch with all the Whale Gang and Great Force members out there, and the Cruel Shield Cult, and all the wonderful people from Gulf City and the Irate's channel, and, you know, Sir Adamantine and all them, you know, that follow this, you know, small, you know, niche of YouTube. You know, and everybody's, you know, wonderful and great. And that's, you know, possibly also why I'm so generous at times through charities. You know, like with Beard Burying. Yeah, I didn't donate to his, you know, stuff, but I made him a nice, wonderful shield that you always see in his background. You know, when he reached his 1,000, or was it 2,000 or 3,000 sub, you know, I've donated money to him and Magog, you know, wonderful people. Whenever the channel that shall never be named on, you know, the Gulf City site, you know, K&N, went down. Yeah, I think I was the first person to drop $500 to show my support for Gulf City and, you know, the white supremacy movement, you know, and then, you know, slowly built up over time, you know, made a name for myself over there, and, you know, having the nice little bidding wars with some of the wonderful people out there, you know, just to have a little fun time. You know, I'm not ashamed to, you know, say, yeah, I dropped $1,000 one time, you know, the first, you know, donation, you know, just, you know, to help keep the, you know, dream alive for AP and Ghastly. And then, you know, the recent GoFundMe for Johnny McIntyre, you know, he's a wonderful guy. He, you know, voices AP. You know, he got into trouble. I know exactly what he was going through. And it's like, you know what? I got the resources. I can do this. You know, I'm going to, you know, help him out a big, you know, chunk. And, you know, those guys don't owe me anything, and I don't owe them anything, but they put out such great content that, you know, I just got to do it.
Well, that, you know, that's something that a lot of people have wondered, you know, is you know, why you give, you know, so much to the community, and you know, what prompts you to do that, you know?
Well, it was mostly from my incident, you know, 10 plus years ago, of after I got out of the mental hospital. You know, I only had $100 to my name, no place to live, only friends to help support me for a time being, and the clothes on my back. So building up from there, you know, slowly over time, you know, going, you know, couch surfing, living where I can, you know, lived out on the streets for a little bit. Since I wasn't a drug or alcohol, you know, addict, the VA could not help me, you know, get me set up somewhere. The homeless shelters, because once again, I wasn't a drug or alcohol addict, they couldn't set me up anywhere. So I was, you know, sleeping where I could. Finally got established a little bit, found myself a job. And from there, I slowly built up to where I am now and able to help, you know, certain people out, you know, and you know, it feels like I could do more for some people, and other people's like, you know, I've tried helping you in the past. You kind of, you know, shafted me here. It's like, no, I'm not going to help you. Sorry. You know, I'll talk with you, but I won't help you. So it basically comes down, you know, with my generosity is from my incident back, you know, my, you know, psychotic breakdown.
Right. And so when you came out of that, were you homeless? Did you say?
I was pretty much homeless. Yeah, I stayed with some friends. You know, couch surfing. You know, I'd go and stay for a couple of weeks or so. You know, I didn't want to, you know, run my welcome out or anything like that. And I would just, you know, hop to hop, you know, place to place, until I finally got it a little bit established and found my job.
That you know, that really is. See, that's something I didn't know about you, man. Is because I didn't know that you had a family and everything about that. So was did the family situation, was that like because of the lead poisoning and stuff?
It was due to lead poisoning, you know, and DHS. And I know some of you guys out there listening to this have problems with child support and DHS. They were actually threatening my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, you know, taking away the kids unless she got a divorce from me. And being in jail, it was like $1 divorce for her. And, you know, it went from there. Because she was trying to be nice to me, she didn't file directly with the paperwork for child support. And I got like $12,000 behind and child support because I didn't know anything about it. I would, you know, because nobody could find me because being homeless.
Right.
And once I got a job, my wages started getting garnished, and it's like, okay. And they, you know, got that nice little letter in the mail saying, you know, you got, you know, X amount of time to pay up this $12,000. And by God, I did it. I mean, I was, you know, with the garnishments, and I would, you know, go to, you know, child support. And it's like, okay, here's an extra 50, put that on the books too. So
right.
I was, you know, paying a little bit of extra. And it took me 4 years to get that $12,000 off the book. And now I've overpaid, and they regularly send me, you know, what I don't, you know, because I've overpaid. It's like, we can't take this money because you're overpaid now. So they, you know, cut me like a $20 check extra a month. And it's like, you know what? I hand that right back to the ex-wife. It's like, this is the kid's money. Right.
Well, you know, see, this is, you know, we have talked, you and I have talked so much, and it's like I never knew this part. You know, I knew about the deal with the police and everything. So you had a fucking major ordeal. Yeah. So this, like,
oh yeah, because
go ahead.
You know, I told that story. You know what? Back in October or November last year, whenever. You know, because the holidays are so hard on people, and that's when most suicides happen. And I wanted to tell that story. And yes, guys, you can probably go back into Irate's, you know, history and, you know, listen to that interview a little bit.
Yep, there's a couple. When it comes to the CREEM stream, I think Jack's been on there like 3 or 4 times.
A fair amount of times.
Yeah, and so, and this is before we really. We had met through Dual Wield and on his Discord server.
Oh yes, I met Dual Wield through one of his streams because AP and Gasly were on. They were talking about the glory hole in their front door and stuff. And that's hilarious. So you know, once again through, you know, Gulf City, I started meeting all these wonderful people like Dual Wield and T-Tag, you know, and then, you know, finding Ren and Igor. Wonderful people, and then the, you know, people that are on my private Discord server, you know, just wonderful people to be around. So I mean, it's a slow evolution, you know, wonderful people all around as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and that's, you know, what I'm getting from you, man, is that you've got such a huge heart and you're such a loving person. Is that, you know, you realize that this is the biggest audience I've ever had doing this show. And
wow, that's fucking amazing. Thank you guys for showing up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all because of you, man. Because I don't know. The more I know about you, the more I want to know, to be honest with you, because you're just such a fascinating guy. You know, part of me, you know, is wants to play chess with you, and the other part of me is scared to death to play chess with you, Because
Well, whenever I was sitting in county jail, I mean, there's not much really to do except play checker chess and, black, and poker and all that wonderful stuff. And the people in county, they were like, we're not playing chess with you. It's like, you're hustling us. It's like, dude, I'm not making any bets.
Yeah, I was in a similar situation. I was at a treatment center for drinking, maybe, and I played a lot of chess and stuff. People got to a point where they wouldn't play me. So maybe I can get something going that's worth.
Yeah, maybe take a trip down there at one point in time where you are, and show you a thing or two.
Well, there's an online way to do it too, so maybe we can figure that out.
Yeah, but it's not the same. I like the feeling of the wood in my hands.
Dude, I definitely get that. It's when I've got like that 3/4 view, and I can like scan the board, from different perspectives and shit. My brain can line up different moves and stuff. So I know exactly what you're saying. Whenever I test out, I test out how strong, like right hemisphere, the way that my brain does shit. So, all right, let's see. What do you think the best decision you've made as an adult is?
The best decision I ever made. Mm-hmm. Once again, I'm gonna have to say going into the Navy, or at least going into the military. Oh God, I have so many stories. We could talk for hours just on the shit that I got into and never got caught while I was in the Navy. And that's the whole trick of it. Don't get caught, you don't get busted down.
Well, one of the main people that helped start this CREEM stream with me, I don't know, do you remember Occam's Razor?
Yes, I do. I heard that he was going into the military.
Yeah, that's he sent out a tweet the other day saying that. So if you could talk to him, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to stay strong. It's not as bad as what people think, and go for it, man. Don't let anything stop you.
Well, that's I think that's appropriate advice, and I'll hit up Occam, make sure that he touches base with you on that, man, because everybody's saying no, don't go, and some people are saying yeah, go, and it's like, and I don't know what to tell them. You know what I'm saying?
When I was wanting to join the Navy, my dad was like, "Oh, you don't join the Navy. You don't want to join the Navy? Here, join the Coast Guard," because he was in the Coast Guard. He wanted me to follow in his steps. And my grandfather was in the Air Force during World War II, or Army Air Corps, I should say.
That's right.
It wasn't Air Force at the time.
I was going to bust you.
But he retired after it became the Air Force. So, and I was just like, you know what? I want to be an air crewman. I want to be in those wonderful P-3 Orions doing the anti-submarine warfare stuff. I was, reading on it, doing research, and that's what I was going into the Navy for. And I know air crewman is not an A rate or an A school rating. I would pick that, some sort of ordnance or electronic technician or maintenance personnel like that through, and that would have been through Millington, Tennessee. But that's what I wanted to do. And when I got into boot camp, they had put down, non-varsity swimmer air crewman. So my, preliminary trials to get into air crew school, PT tests would have been a little bit less stringent, but because the senior chief that was running the whole air crew program in boot camp, he was a SEAL, and he's like, no, everybody is going to make these times. And they were the exact same stuff that the SEALs had to go through to get, for BUDS, EOD stuff. And, oh God, after running 1.5 miles in like 8.5 minutes, doing 10 pull-ups, 100 sit-ups, or a minimum of 50 sit-ups, a minimum of 50 push-ups, and all under 10 minutes, and then have to swim 400 meters in under 13 minutes. I couldn't do it. I was making it like a minute or two past that. So I, basically washed out of that program, but because in my contract it said if I got washed out, I would go undesignated, and then I could pick my job, my rating afterwards. And that's what I did. And right out of boot camp, I went over to San Diego and got stationed aboard an aircraft carrier. I'm not going to say which one. But they stuck me. I was so scared of being put on a flight deck. I was like, man, I'm going to get my ass killed if I get up on a flight deck. And I guess God's seen that I might have gotten killed too, and he sent me with gunner's mates. And that's where my love of guns really flourished. I mean, working with the M2 heavy barrels and M60s and the M14s, the 45s, the Remington 870s, the Mossberg 500s.
So you were working, were you working with combat weapons? All right.
Yeah, I was at the small arms. We did magazine maintenance sprinkler stuff. You know, we maintained all the ordnance magazines, shipboard security, and I loved it. Those guys that I worked with were absolutely amazing. And you know, I was the smallest guy at the time. You know, being 5'7" and only 125 pounds, but willing to lug a 50 cal up a flight of stairs and across as fast as I can across the hangar deck, or the hangar bay, to my gun mount with that weapon over my shoulder. You know, that far. They're like, holy crap, he's a little beast.
So you're talking about an M2, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the
50 cal.
50 cal.
Right.
Yes, I mean, with the receiver and barrel attached, and having to run it just in case.
What does that weigh?
If I was the only person able to man that gun, we had to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's like 85 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's like 3/4 of my body weight at that time. And having to run basically 200 yards with that, you know, over my shoulders, you know, ducking under aircraft wings, you know, all the little chains that were, you know, down. It was a blast. And you know, every time we had a security, you know, drill or whatever, you know, they're like, no, you're gonna stay right here, Jack. Don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. And you know, the security drill would go off, and I was right there, and I'd get my flak jacket on. I'd, you know, turn my head on backwards, like, you know, over the top, you know, with the Sylvester Stallone. And my God, they you know, my senior chief, my LPO were impressed. My gunner was impressed. I mean, you know, they really did not want me to leave from being a gunner's mate, because they, you know, worked so hard to get me to where I was at that point in time. But after that, I went into meteorology and oceanography, because I was an airman, and I, you know, wanted to be an airman rating.
Right.
So that's what my actual rate was when I got out. It's called orographer's mate. So you know, I did meteorology, oceanography, and wonderful field.
So it sounds like that you just had a blast. So.
Oh yeah, I did. With the gunner's mates. Oh yeah, and they were the first. They were the first guys to actually get me drunk. He was like, you know, Jack, you have been on the ship for the past 4 months doing all these brake manuals, all these training manuals, you know, exemplary performance. You know, so far it's like, we're gonna have to go out and get you drunk on the base. You know, and being, you know, less than 50 miles from, you know, a foreign country, we could drink on base at 18 or under 21.
Right. So,
and they're like, we're going to get you drunk. So they got me drunk. Oh my God, that was the worst mistake they ever did.
That's my thought, man. If you're old enough to die for your country, you should be old enough to fucking buy a beer. You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't so much that, you know, from the drinking. It was, you know, every port of call that we did, they're like, yep, we're going to go with Jack and we're going to have fun. and I brought the party. I mean, as soon as I started drinking, I was the life of the party. You know, never got caught with some of the stuff that I did while inebriated. Thank God.
That sounds like you did, some antics.
I mean, what was our first port of call was in Busan, South Korea, and some of the guys, you know, we all, you know, it was, you know, practice to say, you know, we're going to, you know, you have to go with, you know, 2 or more people, no matter where you go, you know, for safety reasons. And we wanted to find a place. Oh God, what was it called? Green Street, I think it was called. I'm not quite sure. You know, it's been 20 plus years ago. And went to this, you know, try to go down, you know, all these karaoke bars. And since we were, you know, white people, they didn't want us in there until one of the mama-sans was like, oh yeah, you know, waved us in. It's like, we sat down, started drinking, started eating some of the local fare. Worst night of drinking and eating ever, but had a great time. While we were about to leave, an elderly gentleman came up to us, and he just kept saying, no pay, no pay, you know, money no good, money no good, no pay, no pay. We had no clue what he was really saying until we started pulling our money, And he, basically shoves our hand back into our wallet. It's like, oh, he's gonna buy. It's like, you buy? And he smiles and he shakes his head, yeah. And it's like, all right, cool. We're gonna stay here and do some karaoke and get drunk and eat and everything like that. It was a fantastic night. But during the course of the night, the mama san just kept hovering over by me, and then after about 20 or 30 minutes of this, she's like, she looked at me and said, "You like granddaughter?" And I turn around, and I kid you not, I mean, yes, the granddaughter was a half-breed, about 6 foot tall, jet black raven hair, and a body built like a shit brick house. Oh my God. And she was, just curves all in the right spots. And one of the guys I was with, he was a second-class petty officer, and he just put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't you do it." And it's like, don't worry, I'm not. And I talked with the young lady for, about 5 or 10 minutes and told her, it's like, can't do it. She's very pretty, but no, can't. After the night wore on, it was about 1 or 2 in the morning, decided to, it was time to head back to the ship. And I had to go to the bathroom. The alcohol and the nasty food that we were eating, to me it was nasty. To them it could have been a delicacy. I don't know. I was too drunk. But went and did my business in the bathroom. And as I was walking out, that older gentleman that night, that basically paid for alcohol and food, he comes up to me and says, you married granddaughter. I pay way, I pay way, I pay way. And I was like, I can't do it. I cannot do it. There's no way. And it's like, I humbly, basically told him I have to refuse it over and over again until he finally got it. And then, after we got back on the ship, I told my senior chief about this. And he looked at me and he says, you know what he was saying? He said by no pay way, or I pay way, he was going to buy out my contract, my Navy contract, get her a visa, and basically get us married and set us up with a house, all the, basically a future for her, so she could bring the rest of the family over. It was kind of one of those deals. You marry her, we'll set you up with a house, a job. And then looking through our cruise book at the end of the year, after we got our stuff back, the second-class petty officer that we were drinking with, he was like, "Hey, Jack, come over here and look at this." And he points to the picture, and he's like, "Remember that guy?" I said, "Not really." He goes, "That was the guy that was willing to pay your way and hers over there to get married and all that wonderful stuff. Come to find out, he was a captain in the South Korean Navy."
Holy shit.
So, yeah, I was like, holy crap. It's like, I'm glad I was kind of, nice to him, as drunk as I was.
Wow, man, that's like, whoa. I bet that was like, I can't imagine.
Oh, yeah, it was an eye-opener, and especially at the time, being 19 years old, so, wet behind the ears a little bit, if you want to call it that, greenhorn. And I was like, holy crap. I had an opportunity for this. It's like I passed it up. So I kind of regret that a little bit, but then again, I don't.
It's like Tennessee in the chat says, it was a trap.
Well, it was a financial trap, because after a while he would have been divorced, pay the alimony and all that wonderful shit. So that's why I'm kind of glad I didn't do it. And I kept kind of a level head on my shoulders.
Yeah. So how many years did you spend in the military?
I only did a hitch. I only did 4 years active, and I went 4 years inactive reserves. Mm-hmm. And I was still in the inactive reserves. Basically, if they need me to come back, if it's a critical job, they can recall me.
Right.
And I was still there whenever 9/11 happened. I only had like a year left on that contract. And I was like, oh crap. So I, called down to my detailer and asked him, hey, what's going on? And they're like, don't worry about it, Jack. You're fine. You're not a critical. We got, plenty of, aerographers mates floating around. You're not needed. So that was, kind of a good thing.
Well, and once again, I sincerely, appreciate, you putting your life on the line for the country. Everybody, it warms my heart to know that there are so many people that actually, because this is a volunteer, volunteer military that we have, and people don't understand that. When I grew up, people, if their number came up, they had to go. And we were at war, and there was a lot of negativity and shit about it now, and then in the 70s, there was this whole idea to revamp the way that they viewed the military, and the military didn't really get any respect back until, I don't think, until like towards the end of the Reagan era.
I think they, after, what was it, Gulf War, the first Gulf War with, under Bush one, right. That's when the military got a lot of that respect back, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Well, it was, and that's really not the word for it. It's more like I guess the respect that the people that owe their freedoms to it,
Yes,
acknowledge I wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was in high school when that happened, and at the time I was, one of my classes I took, it was a FFA class, and it required, community service, so I joined the Law Enforcement Explorers, back in high school, and, the whole community, basically after, all the troops were coming back from, the Persian Gulf that time, back in 91, 92, whatever it was, a big parade, and basically the guests of honor were all the Vietnam veterans in the area, and they had a big old march, and they were all in tears. It was a homecoming that they never received, and and it was very appreciated that the entire community went out and did that for them, and including the Gulf vets that were coming, home too. But it was, to show respect for all the branches of the military, especially the Vietnam veterans, because the times have changed, and people got older, memories have died a little bit, and they were super appreciative of the entire community in my town when that happened.
That's, I'm so glad that they did that, because there was so much bullshit. That's one of the main reasons I really hated the hippies. People will call me a boomer and shit, and the reason that it offends me such is because those fucking hippies that did that shit and called, people baby killers, people that had no choice to go where they went, people that, that had to follow orders and shit. And a lot of the people that went, they weren't cut out for the military, man, but
not everybody.
Exactly. And they went anyway. And so, so that's why I claim Generation X. I'm right on the borderline. It's like Adamantine was joking with me. He said, "How many different studies did you have to look at before you could find one where you qualified as a generation?" He's right. It took about 3 or 4. But
exactly, yeah. No, I'm a Gen Xer, born in the 70s, lived through the 80s and 90s, as a kid. So
that's right.
Yeah, I'm right there as an Xer.
That's right. You are. So, all right. So we're kind of getting in the wrap-up phase on here. I'm going to ask you a fun question. What is your guilty pleasure? What's that thing that everybody gives you shit about, but you can't stop loving it?
Oh God, I really can't think of a guilty pleasure. I mean, life is a pleasure in and of itself.
Yeah. I think for me, it would be like Starship Troopers. It's not the greatest movie on the planet, but it's so fucking fun. And every time it's on, I have to watch it.
I love movies. I love good books. A good plot, whatever. Even if it's cheesy. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the Evil Dead movies, or the Godzilla movies. Everybody loves those.
Fuck yes. Absolutely.
It's just so hard to say what's one guilty pleasure. It's like I have a lot of them, if you want to call it that.
That's right. Good. Well, let's see. Let's see if I covered everything I want to cover here. Oh, who is your, all right, since you're a connoisseur of YouTube and the and the content and the people, the creators on here, who is a person that you think is criminally undersubbed that you would like to promote?
Oh, criminally undersubbed. I mean, a lot of the people I follow are criminally undersubbed. I mean, you're undersubbed, Sir Adamantine's undersubbed, Gulf City's undersubbed. Oh, God, just so many people. I mean, where do I even start? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody that I like is, undersubbed. So, in my opinion. Oh, man, I just, I really don't know. You got Rum Mug the Orc, with his, Stewart, saga going on. You got, Tiberius Kirk with some of his gaming stuff. Even Ren and Igor with their channel, Movie Night channels, and the talking that they do. I mean, it's just so many that I follow out there that are undersubbed, and it's like, you know what? Maybe that's what they're meant, to be. It's like a small channel, so they could do things their way instead of having a million subs and then crying over a silver button, that they get, that's generic that everybody gets from YouTube. And so I don't know, it's just maybe, oh man, like I said, it's just so many of them are undersubbed.
Well, man, that's one thing I appreciate. I think, man, we could talk all day, and you're not going to have a bad thing to say about anybody. I love your optimism, and you're so open about things. And one of my favorite things about you is the fact that you know how much I'm a big Alabama fan, and you'll go out of your way to say "Roll Tide" to me if something good happens, and stuff. And I've always appreciated that because I know
that's right. Roll Tide, roll, because you're a Bama fan.
That's right. Roll Tide. I said we'd have to get it in at least once during the show.
Oh yeah, Roll Tide, roll.
Roll Tide, people. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on?
Not that I can think of. I mean, just be excellent to each other, like Bill and Ted said, or Abraham Lincoln said in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other. We're all one giant family, if you want to call it that, even though we're highly dysfunctional at times.
I agree with that, man. And I think that people take this shit too seriously. I think if you like lighten up on the seriousness and just have fun, this thing is a lot more fun when you're just trying to have fun.
It's kind of like what John Wayne said. Life is hard. Life is even more hard when you're stupid.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap everything up on. I want to thank Jack T. Ripper for hanging out with us for the hour ice cream interview. Next week we'll be looking at talking with a beautiful young lady named Sunny, also known as Right Wing Sister. She has agreed to spend the hour and talk a little bit about herself with me. And once again, Jack, thank you so much for popping in and hanging out for this thing. It's been
thanks for having me on, Irate. I do appreciate it, and
hope
to do it again.
Well, I'll probably have you pop in on the CREEM stream the next couple of weeks. We're having our 1-year anniversary. Episode 52, so I might hit you up to pop by for that, maybe for 5 or 10, 15, 20 minutes.
That'd be great.
All right, man. So with that in mind, everybody, this is Irate Prostate. This has been another ice cream interview number 10 officially, and with Jack T. Ripper. thanks everybody that showed up, and thanks everybody for subbing, and you know, keep hanging with me. We're gonna have more fun coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I got some new shit in the works, and we'll be rolling some new stuff over. So with that in mind, this is Irate Prostate.